Well, the first 2 pages of what Patsy just handed you are essentially comparison. The green calendar is a calendar the court used prior to my taking, actually a little bit into my taking the position. And there, if you notice, there's some changes on it. Specifically, there's 2 calendars running on Mondays. There's 2 Monday mornings, there's 2 in the afternoon on Friday, and there are 2 running on Thursday. And the reason for that, first off, this funding source came from, frankly, the Public Defender's Office decided that they wanted to do a blanket affidavit campaign. And then that sputtered out, I'd say towards the end of January. I don't really want to get in here, waste everybody's time speculating on why that was the case or not, but it did sputter out. That doesn't mean affidavits don't happen, and they should happen because that's kind of normal court functioning. But what we did with the money is we used pro tems and we set up, made some changes to the calendar. The reason we did that is because the prior calendar was flat out not working, and I've had the option, had the privilege or what have you to experience it from a consumer end when I would represent clients here, and it was extremely rare that I'd be able to go in and get my client in, get my client out, because everything was pretty much piled on top of everything. Anti-harassment order, they're not, a lot of them are just 5-10 minute hearings. A lot of times, you know, the respondent doesn't show, the petitioner doesn't show. But when they get contested, then there's a lot of litigation. And I also know that from the consumer, and I handled one in probably a year before I ran for office that they started at 1 o'clock and ended up sometime after 5 in Thurston County. So what was happening is people were stacked up because they couldn't get through the trial. I want to be real clear, I'm not blaming my predecessor in any way, shape, or form. This is what she had to work with, and this is the best they could do to make it fit. So we wanted to loosen that up so we could get people in and get people out and not have them cool their heels, you know, as calendars go over the allotted time or not, because, again, there just simply wasn't enough time available to try this. And so we divided up the Monday morning. The protection and harassment generally is done by a pro tem, usually a Judge Greer, who covers for us quite a bit like he did before, and he's also the municipal court judge for Shelton, and I will do the infractions. Sometimes we switch that off, and I'll do the custodies, or sometimes we'll switch that off. The afternoon.
How much time does Greer do?
Gives you an idea.
I couldn't understand that.
These are the judge's initials.
Oh,
So
okay.
Stephen Greer is this one here, and he's done 644 hours of pro tem time. And then these are just other judges we've used this year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and one of the things we've also striven to do is have a large, for lack of a better term, a bench of pro tem judges, people available, because that's, you know, can cause some problems when we don't have enough to be available. So the point is, what's been able to happen with this calendaring, with this new calendar, and it's been in effect since, I believe, either February or March. I don't recall exactly when we put it into play. What's happened is the calendars are flowing a lot smoother, and people are actually getting in. They can show up and expect their type of hearing is going to be heard at the time that they say it's going to be heard, whereas before it really was not the case. And again, I want to be real clear, it's not because Judge Meadows couldn't move cases through. Trust me, I saw it firsthand, she could. But sometimes I tend to use stupid examples. It was like trying to drain, you know, a large reservoir with a garden hose. It only takes so much. So it's critical to us that we manage to keep the ability to run this type of a calendar. It's also the case, and I'm sure that you've all noted it as well, we haven't used a lot of the pro tem monies that were allocated last year. If you haven't noticed that, maybe I should have kept the secret in the bag, but I know what you're saying.
That big catastrophe that was called for never occurred.
Never occurred.
I remember, yeah.
Right. But at the time, we had to assume that it was going to occur.
Yeah.
So the situation is, we've gone over the numbers quite a bit, and what we're proposing to do is get a 16-hour per week court commissioner position. And with that, we would need, I believe it's 62,400 of that.
Plus, Social Security and, yeah, those things.
My understanding,
Medicare,
Medicare.
that would not get
Federal
you into the realm of retirement, things along those lines.
They
but the
don't,
full
would not
package of
qualify
benefits.
for retirement or benefits, I don't think.
And then take an additional, of the pro tem money, an additional 20,000, because if we, 25? How dare you? If we disagree, go with her, trust me. But the point is, what we're looking at doing, the commissioner would not be able to do some of the things that a regular judge or pro tem judge could do. They cannot hear civil jury trials, they cannot hear any criminal trials at all unless all parties agree to that particular pro tem hearing the case. So we'd have to show up on the day of trial, do you agree or not agree? So we would still need some money, pro tem money. The reasons that we haven't used as much as we feared is really, I think, the following. Number one, the affidavit campaign sputtered. That doesn't mean it stopped. There's still affidavits of prejudice being filed, and I'm not aware of too many judges that never get them. And there's cases where I recuse myself, former client, or I know the people and I don't feel comfortable being a judge because I know that I don't want anybody's suggestion I did treated them any differently or what have you. Are two of the reasons, but one of the other reasons is why it's as low as it is at this point. Actually, we'll give you two more reasons. Jury trials did not pick up until later in the year, and they really have picked up. But for the first 3-4 months or so, there were very few jury trials in the court, affidavit or otherwise. And the other part is one of the benefits that the judge has 30 days of vacation. And normally, in the past, I think you would have seen the vacation taken. To date, I've taken exactly half a day of vacation time. It's a new position for me. I'm still learning the ropes, and there's still things to go ahead and get set up and make sure things are going. I haven't felt comfortable taking time off at this point. That'll be changing. So I think when you add those figures together, it's still going to be quite a bit less than what we spent, but it's not going to be the same. It's not going to sound as low as it perhaps does at first glance. So we do want to preserve as much of that pro tem budget we can, either in the form of a pro tems or in the form of a commissioner plus the 25,000 or the equivalent money left in the budget, so we can make sure. And frankly, I would much prefer. I'm not sure about how you would want to be. I'm new at this, but I'd much prefer to be in a position where we don't need it. Here it's back, than having to come with supplemental budget request because things have picked up beyond which we thought or whatever. And it really only takes more cases to go to trial, and we have new public defenders coming on. I don't think we can comfortably assume that what's happened last year is going to happen this year again. So that, to our mind, is very critically important. We preserve that. One other thing on the calendar that may not be reflected on this, before the affidavit calendar would, and that's also recusal calendar, would run 1 week, 1 or 2 weeks out of the month. But we run it every week but trial, every week in the month but trial week. So it's there more often. So that to us is what we're proposing. We've had quite a few discussions to try to shave that off as much as possible, because obviously we don't want an amount that we'll never reach or anything along those lines. And that's the best guesstimate we can give you is what it's going to take to get us through the next year.
so just to recap and clarify, the request is to take money that we authorized for in light of the AOP thing at the beginning of this year, convert that to a court commissioner .4, and then have a little bit for pro temp.
25,000, which is still considerably less than what you authorized us for the past year. And with a little bit of luck, perhaps some of that could be returned, but again, we're trying to predict the future. That's about the best I can come up with, and reach an amount that I think would get us through the year, maybe be able to return a little bit at the end of the year, but not have to come back and say, in order to operate, we're going to need more, or what have you.
So that would be policy level 1, to address policy level 1, the court commissioner request.
Okay.
Policy level 2 is for additional staff for district court. And in one of the packets I handed you, is a list of some of the duties the clerks perform, and I encourage you to look at that because it really enlightens you on the functions that the staff does. I broke it down by judicial support specialists, 1, 2s, and 3s. There's a lot of things that happen in our office, as in all offices, I'm sure. But it gives you kind of a enlightened look as to what some of the duties they are trying to stay caught up on. And by statute, we have time limits that we have to abide by. And also in that are some photos. Yes, these are photos that were taken during Judge Meadows' year, but it still reflects and depicts what we currently look like. So.
I do think we're having some issues, and so far they haven't been like, we better go talk to the risk management people or anything along those lines, but there have been some times when we have not, person posts bail, they get out, they don't show up, they order a warrant, there's supposed to be a notice of forfeiture sent to the bonding company within 30 days. They don't have it, they don't get it, and it's not because everybody's over there lazy or going having a binge drinking party during work hours or what have you. I don't want to probably do after hours either. At least I hope not. But the point is, there's just too much there to stay on top, and that, in the greater scheme of things, may not be the very first priority. But what happens if we don't get the notice in 30 days, the bonding company is left off the hook. They don't have to go out and try to bring the person back. The bail has to be exonerated, and that seems to be picking up. Another issue we've had, and again, this is what I understand, but I also know it, because again, as a consumer, I have seen the staff turnover myself, as an attorney representing people in the court, that we've gone from pretty experienced crew to pretty much everybody either just beginning or maybe ready to take the next step, what have you. So there are people still coming up, basically a lot of training. And we're in a position right now where one of our people who would be doing a lot of the training doesn't have the time to do the training because she's busy covering for other things, appearing in court when need be and things along those lines. So it is causing some issues. So we put in a request, a fairly big request. I'll first to admit, I think of 3 staff persons. We're going to need to get some extra help in there because things are not. We're having issues trying to keep things up, and I think part of it is where it's really affecting us operationally is with the stress load. We've also had a very regular turnover of people, not just since when I got there, but even before, people going elsewhere. Thurston County seems to be a popular destination. It's more money and less work, less stress. And I think at least 2 of the people who have left have sent letters, saying this is the reason. Socorro and I can't remember her last name, and Bailey. So the situation is that We have spoken about that, and before I go into what our conversations were, well, actually, I'll discuss a couple other things too. I'm new with this. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the filings have been going through the roof, because they haven't. But I have gone through to take a look at them, and it seems like some of the patterns and explanations are, a lot of the filings we're talking about are like driving license 23rds. And they're in the process of almost disappearing, and part of that's because the prosecutor's office has started diverting a lot of them without ever filing charges. I don't know how, whether or not how well that works or what have you, but it's gone from several hundred to, what was it, this year, like 100 something?
Yeah.
Okay. I like to put her on the spot. It's
No.
what I do.
One thing I would like to throw in there is, although our filings may not reflect an increase, we do have over 23,000 open cases in our court. And those 23,000 open cases can be put on the judge's desk or on the clerk's calendar at any time. So they're cases that are not closed, they're pending anywhere from arraignment to time payments. They're making payments on their fines. If they fall behind on their payments, the clerks have to address those. There were warrants that could be hopefully someday arrested and brought in, or they're gonna call us and come in and address the warrant on record. At some point, those 23,000 cases are gonna have to be addressed. So, and to me, that's a huge number.
Right. And the other thing is, the driver license 23rds, I think are a very significant part of the drop in filings, but they're also the types of cases that we don't do a whole lot with them per case. I mean, in the aggregate, I guess we do, but we don't do a whole lot of them per case, because most of the time, it's going to be prosecutor working a deal out, go get your license or something, or they're being reduced to infractions right away or something along those lines. The types of cases that are more labor intensive as far as what we have to do, like DUIs, domestic violence. I'm not sure if we had much of a drop there, but it's not nearly what it's been, and we still have quite a few of those coming through the court, and they're taking time. Trials are taking time too. We have it seems like a very low percentage of trials are completed in one day. Most of them go at least 2 days. So we are having issues trying to keep up. It's causing stress, which I think helps cause turnover, which means we have a fairly inexperienced staff we're trying to train up. I'm not trying to train them, the real people are, but the fact is, then that puts more stress because they're still trying to train and keep up, and it's not a good cycle, and we need to do something to get some help. We have discussed what we'd like to have, obviously, is the 3 staff people. We have discussed what we could do to, go less than that to make it work. If there's, any interest in seeing what can be done, I'd be more than happy to discuss those options with you. But that is very critical to us, too, almost as critical to me, and maybe more critical to the staff than being able to maintain the current calendar with running the 2 courts that we're currently running. So that's kind of what I had to say on it, but.
So, just again, your priority would be the commissioner, the shift that we talked about?
They're like this.
1A and 1B?
Yes, they're both real critical now. As I said, we've spoken about what we could do to help the situation out and maybe pare our request back or what have you, particularly when you are the ones that have the purse strings. I'm not here to say my way or the highway, obviously. But I do want to get the point across so that it's very critical we get some additional resources so we can address these issues. Both of them are extremely critically important. So, just doing the math, if we go through, like either that amount of pro tem money, that was just a lesser amount, or the commissioner plus the much smaller amount of pro tem money, that would be a fair amount of money left over to help pay for at least one staff person. So that's real critical to us. The other things we were talking about, and I'm keeping this in my head, so if she says, hey, what about this? We'll talk about that too. We have put in here a request for extra UA fees. This is a situation where the practice is UA's ordered, they pay for it. The money goes back into the general revenue, however, it doesn't, and it's taken out of the budget. That's what was given to us to begin with. But the reality situation is, I believe the UA fees right now are just paying for, or actually paying a little more than what it's costing us. Day one I got here, or day two, I don't recall which, on the review calendars, I made it a practice when people are in court for being accused of not complying with their probation, and the probations with substance abuse, when the crimes with substance abuse related, either because like a DUI or there's a domestic violence, but alcohol is involved. When they come there, almost everybody's ordered to take a UA at their own expense. If they don't have the money to pay for it, we front the cost and it gets paid back. And we've had a pretty good rate of people paying for them. I think Patsy gave you the stats on that, and I think it's having the desired effect. When I first started doing that, about 72% in there somewhere of the UA tests were coming back positive, which means they were dirty. Now it's just under 50%. And I think, this is speculation on my part, I think it's because it never occurred to people that that could happen. Now they know it is, and they know that you don't want to be using drugs and going into the court thinking you're going to get away with it. Now we can't do that for pretrial people. There's case law on it where you can't treat people as guilty, nor should we be allowed to treat people as guilty when they're not. But these people I'm talking about are people who are on probation, either deferred prosecutions, suspended sentences, things along those lines. And it's very critical we be able to keep that up. But that's one area where we have gone past our budgetary spend that we've been authorized. But again, it is something that's, I believe it's generating as much or more revenue than it's costing. I mean, that's something very critically we want to keep up, because quite frankly, I very strongly, philosophically, believe that any court should have a point. When I say that, I mean that means the laws are actually going to be enforced. That means your rights can be protected. You're going to be presumed not guilty. If you're convicted and put on probation, you are going to follow through with it. And that means no drugs, no alcohol. That means no drugs, no alcohol, and I intend to follow up on it, and I have. And it's very critical that I have that enforcement mechanism to help do that. So that's an area I would like to think wouldn't be a whole lot of question about, because again, that's something that really is paying for itself as long as we have a big enough budget to continue paying for it. And then along those lines, we are also talking about, we already have it set up as a rule. We have it negotiated with Dispute Resolution Center to set up a mediation for civil cases. And the way that we plan on doing that is I have the ability to order an extra surcharge on the fees. And there's a local rule that would make the mediation, once we activate it, mandatory for small claims courts, small claim cases. And that's just because a lot of times people don't really understand, they don't know what they're doing. And I don't want to give too many war stories, but I'll give one. A couple of people tried to take care of a personal injury case through small claims, even though they didn't want, have an attorney get a piece of the action. That's a flippant way to say it, but you know what the contingency fee. And I had one, and the plaintiff was very good at showing the other side was at fault. They were liable, but it never occurred to them that they would also have to show what their damages were and prove it. And so I could only award nominal damages. And I think a mediation would at least open people's eyes that, this is namely the way these would resolve and what have you, and it works both ways. The plan is, we would impose these fees on all general civil, and when I say that, I mean the small claims and the regular civil. I do not intend to impose them on name change petitions. I do not intend to impose them on, vehicle impound hearings or anything along those lines. It would be optional for the general civil. It would be mandatory for the small claims before they get a trial date. And it's our belief that fees will actually cover the cost that we'd be imposing if we get the authorization to do it. I haven't started yet, because until we get it in the budget and everything else, I'm not gonna have people pay those fees for something that doesn't yet exist. But I do think it would help, there's some similarities with small claims cases to like anti-harassment orders. A lot of them are fairly quick, but you can't assume that's gonna be the case. And a lot of them are cases that frankly, the people don't know what they're doing because attorneys are not allowed. They're either not making good points for themselves or they are actually wasting their time because they don't have a cause of action. I think the mediation helps weed that out. So that's something we do want to set up. But we'll need the authorization, budget authority to do that, and also the revenue, that we can go ahead and set up a code so the revenue can go into that fund.
Okay, quite a few. So the sheet that you gave us, it didn't take into account any of the other pro tems or anything. All I have is just one judge, which is him. So I don't have anything to take in.
Exactly, because this report is given to the state, or the state generates this report based on judicial positions, elected judicial positions, and court commissioners. That's all. This does not reflect any pro tems.
Okay, but the pro tems do account for something. Do you know how much? How much time? I know you gave me this other sheet.
We gave a sheet of the full
Yeah.
amount of time. I can see that back.
So just a rough count of about 1,500, is that accurate?
Looks like it.
That's me. I just did a rough one in my head, so. I didn't
I would say
include,
1,500.
yeah, I didn't include
If you
yours.
totaled it there.
So Jen, it doesn't show on here, how much did we increase it last year to cover this other issue? I have down here 100 and,
I think it was 111,000.
yeah, I have, that's what I have is
I think
111.
it went to up 75.
So it went up 75,
I
okay.
believe that's what it
That
went.
sounds about right, I can.
That makes sense, because I remember the conversation. So of that, how much total did we expend this year, please?
We, so far through September, we've expended a little over 20,000.
20K? Okay. So I'm just thinking, looking at your numbers and looking at what you're requesting. So the actual maintenance would be closer to 20,000 in that line.
Well, it's not taking into consideration some things that are kind of anomaly. The first anomaly is, again, from what I understand, my predecessor
Make
by
copies
now
of this, but you can
would have
certainly
used
look at
most
it.
of her vacation time. I've used half a day. And I don't,
Actually, she was really good about not taking vacation. That was
Oh,
part of
no,
the
she took a
problem.
She took
vacation every
vacation.
year.
Oh, did she? She
Oh,
came in-
yes, sirree.
She came in every time I told her she never took time off. That was her big thing.
Yeah,
She said
but she didn't take it off at the, yeah, she did take her no, she took her vacation.
Because she, every year she came in and
She
said,
took
I
her
didn't take
vacation.
my time. That's right.
She may not have used all 240 hours that she's allowed.
So we're probably, just roughing that, we're probably talking 30,000 then, or 35?
I would say, yeah, probably 30,000 would be a good number to keep in there.
So that's-
What do you think?
but that's one area, again, which, again, I think it would be extremely unusual that by this time next year, I've only taken a half a day of vacation time.
No, I was including, what I said, the 35, I was including that in it. So
The other-
that still leaves a 75, that's
Yeah.
already been in the budget. That, and that's what I was coming at. So looking at what true maintenance is, and then looking if we have money to work with. And it looks like if we decided to do anything without breaking the bank, because we have to try and keep things underneath what we still have to work with.
Right.
That within this budget, there still may be an additional 75 that can be reallocated.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking earlier if, you know, if they were asking to convert that additional portion of the money that we put into the AOPs, to convert that into the
Right.
commission ask or whatever the, you know, the
Either-
priority was, which was.
So I'm gonna jump in. You can tell me to shut up or kick me or whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna commit the crime of assault. I'm
Under the table, no one will see. Before we came over, well, for the last week, we've been trying to work this we understand that we want to try and stay as much within our budget, but yet obtain the needs we need to function and to continue going across the street. So with the court commissioner, that would be 62,400 plus what I said medical, or not medical, but the L&I and social security that has to be taken out. And leaving $25,000 in the pro tem line to cover all the other things that the court commissioner can't hear. That would leave $23,600 of that $111,000 to offset some of the other requests that we've put in. Now, those being, the big ones are 2 district court staff, that's PLR 2 that the judge mentioned. And PLR 10 is a probation staff person. I have absolutely no support staff in probation. I have one of my district court clerks over there covering the phones and the counter and receiving and doing probation work, taking her away from stuff that she could be doing in district court side of the office. So she's basically half and half doing that kind of work.
So I think where Commissioner Edelman is headed is maybe is similar to where I was headed. I think we may have the ability to address part of your ask within kind of the parameters that you're talking about here, and that's why I've asked which is the priority of the commissioner or staff. So that's one part of it. Then the other part is, I guess the next question to you would be, of the other staff requests that you have for the probation assistant or, you know, support, and the other, you know, 2, where is your priority there? You said you have no support in probation, and you have somebody.
I know where mine is. I can't speak for the judge.
Do you guys want to huddle up and let us know? I mean,
Well, we discussed.
I think we've discussed it. I want to make sure we're on the same page.
One possibility, and it wouldn't be ideal, but I think we could definitely address a lot of our issues. Again, having the ability to manage these 2 calendars and run them, the 2 courtrooms the way it is critical. But so is the staffing. And we discussed what if we were to make one position, the probation support staff, make that person full-time. That person would need to be at least a 2.
A minimum of a 2,
And preferably a 3.
preferably a 3.
And then, that would
What do you
essentially.
mean by 2 or 3, I'm sorry?
A judicial support specialist.
Okay.
So that.
Now I get the 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I'm still learning the lingo too.
She's got to have the knowledge to be able to sit at that desk and do the job.
Right now, Camille, who's doing that work, is splitting her time, I believe it's 50-50 between regular court stuff and the probation stuff. If she were just doing the regular probation stuff, then that would essentially mean that we'd have she'd be doing that full-time. It's needed, and probation actually, I would say they're close from numbers I've seen to being self-supporting. They bring in a lot of revenue, I mean, enough to at least cover their costs. But at the same time, that would put us in a position of having then that support staff, another support staff person in district court with just simply making the probation department have their own, it's dedicated probation, so we could have that extra slot dedicated to the court.
So I think the answer to your question is the probation support staff would be my priority. The court commissioner and the probation support staff.
That means we'd have, again, full-time staff so that they have the incentive and the ability to train them up so they can advance, progress, learn the skills they need to, make more contribution, be able to go into court and support staff, the number ones are not able to do that. They don't have the knowledge and skills to do that.
And I did submit the budget with the intent of, with the thought of having a JSS 3 take that position.
So that would go a long ways to helping us out. If you can find a way to make that work. And again, I think some of it at least, maybe not all, if you follow our request on the, concerning either the commission or the pro tem money, some of it could just be reallocating a fairly large chunk of that money to help cover the cost for the new support staff person.
And yes, that's true, but I want to remind you of something. When we put that in, that was literally with a gun to our head. At the end of the year, we threw it all together, tried to make it work. And it wasn't with the hope that we're just going to grow your budget by that much. It was an emergency situation with the hope that it would not be used. And because I keep track each year of everything that I'm trying to for the money, understand also that what we're actually talking about for status quo is exactly to maintain the calendars that you've already have, is exactly what you've already been doing this year. That would be status quo, which is 25,000 in that one pro tem, and what you're doing, because we're not doing a commissioner at this time, we're not doing, and you're keeping those calendars. That's keeping it at status quo. I'm not saying I'm not in favor of using some of the money that was already in there, because I'm just telling you, in my mind, the status quo is what you had the year before that. The only change is we added that extra money, but it looks like you're historically the same for your pro tem. We gave you a position the year before that, not you, your predecessor. Yeah, we gave her something because we made an increase. Remember, I got in trouble for it later.
We have not increased, are you talking about staff position?
Yeah, we got you a staff position.
No. We have not increased our staff since 2000. We have not increased our staff.
Let's check that, because I know
Please, let's
remember
check that.
she had that issue where she said, when I said, we don't want to get in trouble, like, because I'm doing it for one person, one judge,
No,
she took it backwards.
It was never,
and it became in the
we were
paper.
never approved that position. We asked for it, but we were never given that position. I know the clerk's office was, but.
No, they were given last year,
District
yes.
court was not, district court has not increased their staff level.
Because I know that we did go through that, we did increase one, but I don't know what happened with that, but remember, because like I said, because that was, I think, before she was in that seat.
No, I have not, I have the same,
Yeah.
I don't recall that.
No,
I
I think
don't.
it was the year that I got in trouble with the judge. Remember, it was in the paper and stuff.
I don't remember.
I can tell you that I've been here since 1984. And since 1999, 2000, we are at the same staff level that we've always been at.
Okay. So, no, that's cool, so, and that brings us back to the other, on whether or not to increase that. And if, for myself, and I'm only speaking for myself, the only way that I would see it, if we increase the judge, you're still gonna end up with the same problems you're having with staff. If you add a commissioner.
It was probation officer.
Through your,
You gave us a second probation
Okay.
officer.
I knew, because I got in
wasn't-
trouble.
Right, it was
Okay.
not support staff, but we did increase from one probation
Because that's
officer
what
to
she
two.
had requested at the time. So, but with that being said, I want to make sure that we understand, everybody's being asked right now to stay at status quo. Status quo is this: if we're gonna add, which we're talking about adding, and I haven't seen the new numbers yet, so I'm really nervous until I see it. Yeah, I think he's saying that, we just got some new numbers. But if we are gonna stay within that, I would recommend that you look at somebody in support staff, and it may not be all of that money, because that money was not given to you in your department, just used forever. That wasn't it, it was for an emergency situation. And that emergency situation never happened, and I appreciate that it's coming back, but that's what it was supposed to do. So if we do it, we're increasing by a body or two bodies. And I just want to make that clear. That's the difference when we're talking with every other department. That's trying to increase by a body or two bodies, or no bodies, because we're telling them no. So I just wanted to be clear with you, Your Honor, on that.
Okay, well, again, I do want to be clear, as long as everybody understands that we're not through with the year yet. And again, there's been some anomalies in this year as far as my taking virtually no time off. So those are not reflected. I know for a fact that Judge Meadows took vacation because I've seen the pictures. as have others. So the situation is, and again, and it's hard to say what's going to happen with like jury trials. I tend to make light of some things, or joke about things. But, you know, for example, one of the big things was I tell people I know that I'm very grateful for Judge Settle in the federal district court because I got to try a jury trial in front of him. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even know what a jury trial is anymore. Talking about when I was in the municipal court, how long it's been since they've had a jury trial, which has been well over 7 years. It's kind of started off that same way here, and then all of a sudden, I'd say around May, it really started picking up. And that's all it would take to change these numbers around a lot. So from my standpoint, what I'm wanting to do is try to come up with a reasonable number so we can address these, maintain this calendar, but also be in a position where we don't have to be coming to you in the middle of the year going, we miscalculated, now we're, you know, here's our cup, we're asking for more. My preference would be to be able to return money rather than come and ask for more. And I'm very, I see myself as someone that very careful, wants to very carefully take care of the resource as well. I mean, I'm in full agreement, and again, so it's not, I'm certainly not here with the idea, just hand me the county's revenues and I'll give you a little bit back or whatever.
And one of the other things is the 30,000 that you're referencing is based on $60 an hour. With the huge increase, the judges received,
Now we're looking at what, 75?
75 an hour. And that's just to stay in comparable with our comparable counties. That I did a survey, and the average of our 8 comparables, keeping in mind that one did not reply, so I used their 2015 hourly rate. The average of them was $86, even a little bit $87, even with the 2015 rate from the other county that didn't reply.
So you were talking about 10 is...
10, the support staff for probation.
So the total fully loaded for the rest of the commission is $73,347. If we were to grant that one position, that would eat up every inch of the other.
Yes. The wages, if that position were authorized for support staff, a current staff person would be moved from the court to that position, taking the wages in her position and moving them over. I mean,
So are you in a position, or you...
I don't have, what do you, no.
Or are you asking...
I'm asking for a new support staff for probation, because they have none. It's just 2 probation officers in that office right now. I'm asking that I have a support staff that is a judicial support specialist 3, which means one of my court specialist 3s, which I have a few, would move to, actually I will have a few as of January 1, because they're due to promote on January 1. They would apply, one of the 3 would apply for that position and be hired in that position, which would then open their position as an entry-level 1, which would reduce the expenditure, the way.
I get you. And you have a 1 or 2 month
fall difference, right,
way off
higher.
rate, basically where that money's not spent. Plus, do you know what the difference is between a 1 and a, where are they at now, 3 you said?
Is that the
They're-
63,000?
No, I meant the difference in
The
the wage.
difference in the wage.
If they would come in as a new hire.
I think it's right around, what is it, 33,000 for the one, and like.
Are we talking wages, benefits, and everything?
About $6,000 is a safe number?
Well, that's like just the salary, then you have the benefits on top of that, and that's only, in the first year, so in, the next few years, then that position would most likely
Yeah, go up.
go up.
Yeah.
So an entry level, let me get the right piece of paper. if I were to hire an entry-level position, the way I figured it, and Jennifer and I are really close in our numbers, I think. Wages, benefits, and all is 60,000 to 626, rounding up. A entry of clerk 3 position, a JSS 3 position is 76,121. Fully loaded.
So although if we did grant that one position, then, yeah, we're looking for the first year savings, it changes the next year, you're looking at about 16 savings. Plus maybe $5,000 lag time for hiring for that 1 year, then it goes up. But I'm not, that's a one-time expenditure type thing, not something we would want to plan with another hire though.
And then the other policy levels, 3 and 4, were just if we were to get additional staff in district court for equipment and IT trackable, so I need a desk and a computer if we were given a court commissioner. Something that I've done over the years is the state replaces 7 of our computers every 5 years. The county purchases them, the state reimburses. That's the 7 of the staff. All the other computers are 2,000, and I did not put this in to replace next year, so it's not even budgeted for computer replacements. But they date back all the way through 2011, and the most recent one is 2014. All the other computers in my office are computers that I used when the state replaced the 7 computers. They don't want the other ones back, so they surplus them to me. And I've used those computers where I've needed additional computers. So I've tried to save the county money by not buying a computer until I absolutely need one, obviously, which I have one in the courtroom dying a quick death. But I didn't put any of that in there. So the level 3 and 4, if we were to eliminate the 2 new staff, would be reduced by a significant amount because I'd only have the .4 court commissioner I would need to get a computer for and the other stuff. Policy level 5 is for putting $500 in for advertising. We never had advertising, we're always in the red. And $500 is really being.
I understand the advertising is for when we have a vacancy to be able to put a help wanted ad out there.
Right. Policy level 6 is the dispute resolution, which is revenue-based. So I put a dispute resolution in the revenue for the same amount as the expenditure. Policy level 7 is an increase in our postage meter. I think it was $600, it needs to go up $600 based on our lease payment. Policy level 8 is the reserve for technology, and that was on staff, for staffing and unemployment allocation, also based on staffing. And then policy level 10 we discussed already. Policy 11 through 14 is to support the probation support staff, if we're allowed to fill that. The other increases, which I guess I forgot to do a policy level, was on the UAs. Jennifer and I
I
discussed
think that's
that.
maintenance anyway.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Maintenance, that's maintenance. anyway.
Okay, all right. Other than that, I think that's it. Did you want to talk about this? I mean,
Well.
it's a little.
As I said, we've, just a few things, like traveling, we reduced that.
No, I did not reduce it. We
I mean-
could reduce our travel line
We cut.
from I believe it's at 7,400 right now, and reduce it down to 59.
And that's because last year we had a brand new judge, so we.
Last year we had it, and the brand new judge chose not to go to some of the training, and he already had some of the training, so therefore he did not need to go.
Any new judge,
That doesn't have
that is a vertical change, either way, has to go to judicial college the first time it's offered after they assume office. Going from municipal court to district court is lateral, so that was not required. So the only thing I did with that, I did go attend one session that dealt with civil law, because that's one thing in municipal court we did not do a lot of, but I did not go to judicial college. And I don't have any plans of going to any national colleges or anything like that at this time. And if I do get an idea that that's something I'd really like to do, it's not going to be in 2020.
And as far as our revenues, as you probably know, our revenues are set by statute. I mean, what we can charge for filing fees and such. He talked about the dispute resolution, so that would be the offset of the dispute resolution. In probation, we did increase, effective September of this year, our UA fees. We charged 42, we raised it to 45. So the fees that we could increase, we did make some adjustments on.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, I think we know what our decision points are. Anything else for us that you want us to think about?
I'll probably think about it about halfway back to my office.
Well, you know where to find us if you do.
Right.
So commissioners, do you just want to go through some of the things that we think are maintenance and,
Sure.
and what's not also? Okay, great. So the 13,000 on the dispute resolution, I think that's definitely maintenance, that has some revenue coming in, offsetting expense.
Right.
Okay.
Good with me.
The 500 for the cell phone, I think definitely maintenance.
Actually, nobody will call me on that county cell phone, so we're gonna give it up after this year. So we're taking that out. They keep calling me on my own device anyway, so it's just an extra phone in my pocket.
Okay. Can I recommend then, looking at the postage line, you're already at 89%, I believe it was.
And I'm fine on postage.
And you're good on that?
Yes,
Okay.
we budget for the full year. I voucher it one time and it runs, I'm good on postage. At this point, I'm fine.
Okay.
I still have some in my postage meter that will get me through the rest of the year. So,
The 600 on the copier postage meter, I would say that's maintenance. That would be, increase it to 6,200. You're already over, or you're right at 75%, I believe, on that line. I think everything else looks like it should remain as a PLR time.
Here in the main what?
It should remain as a request at this time.
Okay.
If you're in agreement. And then on the revenue side, you're okay with moving all of that into maintenance?
For the temporary, should we separate out the difference in the emergency funds that we put forward? Somewhere, because it's not separated out anywhere. I can keep it in my mind, I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
you guys
know.
can too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
I'm good with it too.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
So what's the next step? Do we need to brief again, or?
No, I don't, well, I mean, maybe, but.
Yeah, if we have questions or something comes up.
We'll follow up with you, but we're just trying to get an idea of what maintenance is right now and then see where we're at in terms of, figuring out all the other remaining PLRs countywide.
Did you reduce the travel?
I don't think I did. It's at 7,400.
Right.
And they went down to 5,900.
You can go down to 59.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll get back where we can.
All right, if you have further questions, you know where to find me.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Yeah, good luck.